Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, and welcome to this new episode of the MitoPodcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, the MitoPodcast is a new program that we hope will build awareness in the mitochondrial medicine, research, and patient advocacy community on topics related to mitochondrial disease and health, as well as to highlight cutting-edge research in the field. Our audio format episodes are approximately 10 minutes in length and will feature the exciting work of an expert in the field in a way that can be understood by all in the community, regardless of educational background. Included with every episode will be an infographic summary of what was discussed, so please check that out as well. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Blaine Penny. Blaine is the co-founder and CEO of the MitoCanada Foundation. He is a past president of MitoCanada, having chaired the board from its founding in 2009 until 2015. As the Chief Executive Officer of MitoCanada, Blaine coordinates many advocacy initiatives for patients coping with mitochondrial diseases. He also oversees MitoCanada's patient support programs. In addition, he and MitoCanada aid the efforts of researchers, physicians, and industry to fund research into mitochondrial disease. Blaine has held numerous leadership positions throughout his career, including as CEO of an engineering startup firm. As you will soon hear, he is deeply passionate about raising awareness for mitochondrial disease. Blaine, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the MitoPodcast.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us today. So first and foremost, Blaine, we are very proud of the MitoCanada Foundation. Can you tell us how the MitoCanada Foundation was created?
Yeah, absolutely. It started back about 11 years ago when my son, Evan, who was 4 at the time, got diagnosed with the mitochondrial disease. And our physician pointed us to a U.S. organization because at the time there was no formal organization in Canada that was supporting families or raising awareness for mitochondrial disease. And one of the things was he recommended I go to the annual UMDF symposium, which I did that year. And I met some other families and patients from Canada, and we said together we need to do something back in Canada. So when we got back to Canada, we did stay in contact and talked about starting an organization that would support families, raise awareness, and provide education about mitochondrial disease, and also one of the important factors was to be able to support and fund research. So that's kind of really how it all started. Really, there was a gap and a need, and it was a coming together of other patients and families and caregivers and people who said, "Hey, we need to do something to help this community."
Wow, Blaine, thank you for that. That was very good. That was really nice and really very inspiring to hear. So now, could you tell us what are the next steps for you in MitoCanada?
Yeah, there's lots of work to be done, Mark. But most importantly right now, and most, I guess, front and center for us is, I think we're obviously with COVID-19. It's we have a very vulnerable patient community. So first off is getting through this period with COVID-19 and through this pandemic. But one of the things right now is we're collaborating with our health community, and we are part of the Health Charity Coalition of Canada, and we're advocating to the government for the importance that our health charities play in the sector as a whole, but also advocating for a stabilization fund to be established to help health charities through this. This is a very, very challenging time for charities in Canada, and just as an example, this year we're predicting our revenues to be down somewhere between 60 to 75%. So that's going to really impact our ability to support our patient community and deliver on our programs. So that's a really important part. Secondly, one of our key priorities in the coming year is developing a patient registry. Right now, there is no formal patient registry in Canada, but we are partnering up with Carleton University and Dr. Martin Holchik there, who heads up the Health Sciences Department. And we're going to have 2 master's level students who are going to be dedicated to helping us develop a mitochondrial disease patient registry in Canada. So that's an exciting step for us. Thirdly, one of the another key area that we're planning to advocate for in the coming year is advocating for public and private coverage for medically necessary foods and vitamin supplements. So, for example, right now, the main uh, prescribed therapy by clinicians is a mitococktail, which is a combination of vitamin supplements. But because it's not a drug with an official drug identification number, patients are burdened to carry that cost, and that can be anywhere between $500 to $1,000 per month. And then, as we continue along, one of the sort of more the medium-term areas of focus is around developing a consistent standard of care and centers of excellence for mitochondrial medicine in Canada. And there's a pilot right now that's being spearheaded by the Mitochondrial Medicine Society, and they developed the MitoCare network. So we see that as an excellent model that we're exploring of how we could adopt that in Canada. So lots of initiatives, lots of exciting things to be done. So no shortage of work ahead of us.
So I'd love to get your insight on this next question. So as you know, the development of novel therapeutics is a time-consuming and labor-intensive process. From your perspective as an engineer and a patient advocate, how can we accelerate therapeutic development while remaining cognizant of important principles regarding patient safety?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. I think the short answer is money can solve a lot of problems and help accelerate it for sure. But as we know, a lot of resources right now are being focused on the COVID pandemic and developing a vaccine. But also I think that is a great example of how we can accelerate science and collaboration, working together and kind of looking at science in more of an open model. Um, I hope some of that will spill over into solving other health problems such as mitochondrial disease. But I think as I step back and I look at how do we accelerate therapies for mitochondrial disease, while being cognizant of patient safety. I look at it as sort of a multi-pronged approach, and and again, my engineering mindset thinks of this. Well, we need to do as much as we can in parallel as possible. And as we know, mitochondrial disease is very complex. I think there's approximately 1,500 mutations between the mitochondrial DNA and nuclear DNA that can cause mitochondrial dysfunction and disease. And there's going to be a combination of therapies, between purposely developed drugs to gene therapies, cell therapies, enzyme therapies, and even things like mitochondrial transfusion. So I think if we can, look at developing each of these potential therapies in parallel and have the ability to expedite rapid testing in animal models and cell models and things like that, so that we can get into human trials as quickly as possible. And then, looking at, I think, therapies from a genotype standpoint as well as a phenotype standpoint, because, two people with the same, technically genetic disease, the disease can present quite differently in the phenotype. So the same therapy may not work for the same mutation. And I would say, lastly, I'm really excited about the advancement of technology and the potential for artificial intelligence and machine learning. And there's companies out of Toronto that have been developed through the Mars initiative, like Deep Genomics, that are leveraging data and developing new therapeutic targets, based on just purely on data. So, one of the initiatives that we've been working with, along with our research community in MitoNet, is the vision of MitoCode and being able to leverage data informatics to be able to focus on therapy. So it's a long-winded answer, but I think a multi-pronged and approach, as well as doing as many things as we can in parallel through collaboration, is going to be the key to accelerating therapies.
Thank you, Blaine. So, throughout the series, we have heard what research scientists, physicians, and industry representatives have had to say regarding the importance of collaboration and bringing diverse voices together to find solutions to mitochondrial disease. From the perspective of a patient advocate, what is the value of bringing those of diverse backgrounds together?
Well, I think we would all agree that diversity in any setting or any initiative or problem that we're trying to solve, it is a healthy thing. And each perspective obviously brings a different view through a different lens. But in particular, as we've talked about, I mean, mitochondrial disease is a complex disease, and I look at it, we kind of need to, between the physicians to scientists to industry and patients, I look at it as sort of an interconnected system that requires collaboration. For example, researchers need to understand the priorities of patients, what actually matters to them, like what is quality of life at the end of the day, and what are the symptoms that do affect them the most that we need to be focused on to develop therapies and to help them manage and cope with the disease today. And then, obviously, from a physician standpoint, they need access to these new technologies for diagnostics and therapies that are being developed to treat the patients. And from an industry perspective, they need to work with researchers to help accelerate the science, integrate the science into their future therapies and models, and obviously work with the physicians to, once they get to that point where they're ready to establish trials, to engage those clinical trial sites within their clinics. And of course, connecting with the patients ultimately is the most important thing, who can be part of these trials, and having them be accessible to patients is critically important. So at the end of the day, it's ultimately, the goal is to improve the health of the patient. So the patient, I see, is sort of being at the center of all of this, almost like the hub and spoke model, but it's an interconnected system with everyone working together and collaborating is the way we're going to get future therapies and a cure quicker.
Thank you, Blaine. So, as they work tirelessly to find solutions to the most pressing problems in mitochondrial medicine, how can research scientists, physicians, and industry representatives best support the mitochondrial patient and patient advocacy community?
Yeah, another great question. Again, as we just talked about, the interconnected nature that I think all parts of our community play have a key role in this. And from a researcher's perspective, when I sit back and I put on my hat as a parent of a child with mitochondrial disease, like that's the hope that we cling to, in knowing that there's a field and army of researchers out there whose passion and desire it is to better understand mitochondrial dysfunction and new therapies that are going to help improve the quality of lives for patients. And then secondly, when I think about from the physician standpoint, it's about compassion and care. We commonly hear of patients who have lived their entire lives being told that they're hypochondriacs, they're imagining these diseases, but yet later in life, in their 50s, 60s, or even 70s, getting a diagnosis of a genetic mitochondrial disease, and they've been living with this entire lives, and that's severely impacted them. So I think physicians, listening, testing more patients, and treating the symptoms that those patients are experiencing. And then thirdly, I would say it's accessibility to clinical trials, and that's where industry comes in. As more clinical trials are coming to market, actively keeping engaged with mito organizations like MitoCanada, so that we can recruit patients early and accommodate the needs that they have to be able to participate in these trials.
Well, thank you, Blaine, for coming on the program today and for discussing the inspiring work that you do. Do you have a final message for our listeners? And how can people in the community contact you if they have any questions?
I guess as a final message, I just want to say thank you, and acknowledging this is a milestone year for MitoCanada. It's our 10-year anniversary this year. We've spent a decade working with our patient community, with families, and working with our scientific and clinical communities that have supported the patients, collaborating together, on research projects, developing, organizations like MitoNet that are bringing together that community and the engagement with our industry. So I think it's a big thank you, and acknowledging 10 hard years of work that this organization has accomplished. So I mean, it's something that we need to pause and reflect on. And then for people who are looking to connect with us, I would recommend they visit our website at mitoCanada.org, and people can connect with me directly via email through my email address, blaine.penny@mitocanada.org.
Great. Thank you so much, Blaine, for coming on the program today and for discussing your work. Before we end this episode, I'd like to thank all our listeners for listening to today's episode. If you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, we would love to hear from you. Please head on over to our website to download our episodes and to see the upcoming events we have for this year. We have some exciting initiatives planned, so please stay tuned. Thank you all once again, and tune in to our next episode featuring another expert doing exciting work in the field of mitochondrial medicine.